Good morning. I am Steve Weber. Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show here on Tuesday, March 2nd, a brand new month for broadcasting for me. I did not broadcast a live show yesterday on Monday, but here we go, kicking off the week, the first week of March 2nd, Tuesday, and we've got 4 shows scheduled for this week, guest on every day, so going to be fun. So let's just jump right into it. So guest today, Amy Gray Cunningham, and she is the author of the book Daring to Believe, and it's basically her memoir of being a living kidney donor. So she is going to join us at about 15 past the hour and tell us how it came to be that she donated a kidney. And here she is, alive and well, and telling us about it, and someone else is alive and well as a result of that. So her story is basically all about that process. So that's coming up, and I got to know Amy over the weekend, and we'll talk about that too. So anyway, it's going to be a fun interview. I'm looking forward to that. Now, I also have a monologue. Storytelling is the name of my monologue. That'll be coming up shortly. And also then Brandon Schaefer on Tuesday will join us for his simple motivation, and that'll happen right before we bring Amy on. So at probably about 13 past the hour. All righty. So this week, what's happening? 3 more interviews scheduled, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. And it's going to be a fun week because 2 of the people I've interviewed before, and so they're kind of follow up and they're like continuation of the story. Certainly one is, and the other one is kind of a little bit of a different twist on the original story. And then tomorrow I have Nicole Nassif joining, and I met Nicole back in 1998. We both worked for the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company, and so she has a restaurant concept that she's basically just kicking off and getting started. So she's going to join us and tell us all about that. It's kind of a family, has a real family story to it. It's nothing that, she's been a professional restaurateur, a hospitality person for 25 years. So it's not a family business per se, but the idea is a family concept. So that'll be tomorrow. Nicole Nassif. On Thursday, Stacy Lamar King, he rejoins us. Now, Stacy was here about 3-4 weeks ago, and he told us his story of kind of crashing and burning from PTSD, where he had served in the military and came back home and just kind of dove right into his work, and then finally it all caught up with him. And so that was the interview that we did before. But he is a project management professional, and he's a trainer in that. You can get certification, PMP, project management professional. So we're going to talk about project management. So it's going to have a bit of a business twist, and that'll be fun interview on Thursday. And then on Friday, Jay Tues, who was our guest just last show on Friday's show, talking about converting waste carbons, basically trash, into alcohol fuels. And it's basically a way of cleaning up our trash and also converting it into fuels that are better than just strictly oil based. So anyway, it's a big project, a big concept that he has, and we're going to get into the technology and the social and political will or lack thereof to make it happen. So we'll dive deeper into that story. The first interview was last Friday, and this will be a follow up on that this coming Friday. So Nicole Nassif, Emmy's restaurant concept on Wednesday. Tomorrow, Thursday, Stacy Lamar King, PMP, project management professional, and then Jay Tues, technology and social political will to make the conversion from waste carbons into alcohol fuels and specialty chemicals. All righty, so that's what's happening now. Let's go ahead and shift gears and jump right into my monologue. And kind of picking up on my guest today, I decided to have a monologue called storytelling. All righty, so every day is storytelling for me here. Every day I come and I tell a story and I help others tell stories, and so that's what we're doing here. But I'm going to just talk about storytelling a little bit in today's monologue. All right, so when I'm talking about storytelling, I'm talking about the story that we tell ourselves and that we tell others. So it's like, stories are meant for others, and yet stories are also meant for ourselves. So I'm kind of starting with that premise: is what story are you telling? What story are you telling yourself about your life, and what story are you telling others about your life? That's really the heart of what this storytelling monologue is all about. Now, life lesson number 3 from the movie Forrest Gump is, of course, the journey of life. I'm going to go ahead and do a little screen share here. There we go. And we see that this is the life journey of Forrest Gump. And, of course, he started out as a boy, and then he went to high school and football and college and the army, ping pong, shrimp boating, retired, run across America. And at the end of the movie, we find out that he's a husband and a father. And really, the story of Forrest Gump was nothing more than him being a storyteller, sitting on the bench, telling his life story and each of the individual chapters of that story. And so, you can think of, your own storytelling as something that is basically a whole big story with lots of different pieces, lots of chapters, or you could take one particular aspect, one life chapter, and you can make a story out of that. So that's really the opportunity that you have. That's that's what this storytelling is really all about. Now, I think I covered all of those next points. So anyway, I like to. I'm going to go ahead and stop doing that screen share for now. All right. So I like to. One of the things that maybe it's a skill or maybe it's an interest that I have, but doing reflecting and documenting of events is kind of part of my way of processing my life and my adventure. And so, I just showed you, had that graphic of Forrest Gump, going through the different chapters. I love making these kinds of graphs. I love breaking things down into kind of, little bite-sized chunks. And in my storytelling, I attempt to do something similar. And the reason why I like to do this is it kind of gives me an opportunity to frame things in a certain way. If you're just sort of yapping away and talking, you kind of, follow all kinds of different, ideas. And, people have a hard time following that. If I have a hard time explaining it, then I'm sure others have a hard time in following it. So anyway, for me, it's important that I kind of, whether it be more like a list, like bullet point out, like how the sequence is, or sometimes like I said, I like to make a graphic and kind of show things in sort of a timeline or a sequential version of it. And, what this introspection really allows me to do is it gives me an opportunity to learn from different events and to think about each event and what is the meaning of it. And if there is no meaning of it, why are you even bother to include it in there? And I can turn events into positives. And so I can, one of the important things for me is to kind of put a nice spin on things, right? I'm a glass half full kind of person. And so I always want to make sure that, I'm framing things in a way that there's a positive outcome to it. And there's something good, to share with it. And again, like I said, I like to highlight the good. I want to, it doesn't mean you avoid the bad, or it doesn't mean you don't talk about it. If you look back at Forrest Gump's, I'll share my screen here just for a second. You look back at Forrest Gump's life, there was certainly a lot of, tragedy, and obviously the war, where all of his friends Bubba got killed and other Lieutenant Dan lost. I mean, it wasn't a happy story per se, but there was morals to it. There was learning from it. Forrest framed things in a way that, he turned, the bad and, he turned lemons into lemonade. So, and it's not that you want to bury the bad. At least I don't want to. And again, I'm talking from my own perspective of storytelling. I don't want to bury the bad, but I don't want to, I want to soften it, and I want to, you can highlight it, but you want to make sure that, or at least I do, I want to make sure that I, don't tell too much of the ugly details, but tell enough that, you get the picture and where the learning opportunity came in. So anyway, that's sort of my thinking as far as, how I go about doing a storytelling. Now, what are the events or journeys that, you've done similar. So what I'm asking now, what stories do you regularly tell in your life that you tell in a certain type of way? And you tell them stories over and over again. And, do those, and how do those memories, how do they shape your life today? So if we keep repeating certain things and we tell the story in a certain way, and we tell stories in certain ways, what is it? How is it like kind of advancing and forwarding what's going to happen in our life? Because we're defining ourselves. And so I want to use the stories to, define myself in a way that makes sense for me going forward, and and sense for others. So it's really kind of a, there's that two-pronged approach to it. Like, stories are meant to help frame my particular life and my story, the story I want to tell, and then also, how it can help others and advance their lives using the stories that I share. All right, so getting through most of this pretty well here. I haven't told the roller skating rink story in a while. I'm not going to tell it today, but the roller skating rink story was essentially a story of my own, childhood disappointment that happened way back in 6th grade when I was 11 years old, and kind of had an impact on my life. That story was buried and secret, like kind of locked inside the vault for many, many, many years. And in 2013, I kind of uncovered that story doing some personal development work, some therapy. And then I shared that story public in 2014. So what are we at? 7 years ago. And boy, the first time I told that story, it was just pure therapy for me. It was I went through the details and the gory and this and that. Well, what happened was, once I told that story once, I started to soften it, and I started to, and now I can go through the whole story, and the ugly details are like part of it, but they're not like, they're not as raw and emotional as they were that first time that I told the story. So each time that I told it, I shifted, from more of a pain to more of a gain perspective. So, you want to take the pain and make it a gain. Again, at least that's my process for storytelling. So as I tell stories, the stories just keep evolving, and they become like a little more like general or broader in the sense that you don't need to tell as many of the details. And what happens in time, as again, for me, I tell the stories, they become broader, and they just keep getting wider and wider as you go. So, all right. Here's an updated link. Oh, okay. I've got a bad link here. So I'm seeing Brandon. I must have a bad link that I sent out to my guest, because none of my guests are showing up. So give me just a second here. I'm going to go ahead and do that. Stop that share. I've got my guest trying to log in, is what I'm thinking. And I'm thinking that there's a bad link that I sent out. So let's try it one more time. Give me just a second here. I'll send Brandon and Amy. That link has expired. Let's try. My computer's going a little slow, which is causing me to. Let's see. Sorry about this, folks. There we go. That's Brandon. There's Brandon. Now I got to still send it to Amy. Oh boy, I don't know what I did. I guess I sent a bad link to them. So let's go ahead and try. Here we go. There you go. Sorry, folks. This isn't great live broadcast TV, but this is the reality of doing a live broadcast without having an engineer to keep me on track. All right. So hopefully now we're in better shape. I was wondering why people weren't showing up. But anyway, all right. So I sent off hopefully new links here, and I see Brandon showing up. And hopefully Amy will show up too here momentarily, because that's obviously a little bit of a goof up. So anyway, here we go. Now, so that ends my, let me just wrap up the monologue. It was a little bit messy the way I finished that story as I got myself distracted. Storytelling. Basically we have an opportunity to tell something positive in our storytelling. And if we don't tell a positive story, it's just sort of perpetuating whatever, bad things were happening. And if you're a law of attraction fan, then the stories are basically keep attracting what we've been attracting all along. So that's it for the storytelling. We'll just move on now, and we'll bring in our guest, Brandon Schaefer, and we'll open it up by playing his opening theme song. Oops, there he is.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Steve, before you say anything, I love you. Not in like a man woman way or anything else like that, but just as a friend, as an entrepreneur, as a person putting themselves out there, man. Doing what you do is not easy, and I'm actually gonna take this snip out here and post this, because anybody that's out there watching this, or that wants to do a podcast, or that wants to do a video, or wants to do anything like this, watch what Steve does, man. Watch what he does. He does not let anything faze him. He keeps moving forward, and it leads right into what I'm going to say. We're always synced up somehow, some way. We don't talk before this, but what I wrote down this morning, right, first thing in the morning, no hesitation. Move forward. And Steve, you taught me a big lesson. It actually gave me goosebumps right now as I'm talking about it, because you didn't hesitate. I sent you that note. It said, "Hey, it's the old link." There was like no hesitation in you at all. It wasn't like all flustery, "Oh, I'm going to stop the show," or anything else like that. It was just, "Hey, hold on a second. I made a quick error. I'm going to correct it." And subsequently, I'm here right now having one of the best sessions that I feel I've ever had before with you on your show. So I so appreciate you being you. And like I mentioned, for anybody watching this, be like Steve, man. Be like Steve. Show up, no hesitation, move forward, and you will be successful. I can assure you that 100%. So that's what I have for you today, Steve.
That's it. That's you're just taking my little faux pas and you're running with it. You're making it your own. I love it. Thank you very much. That's cool.
Hey, I didn't even know those, Steve, because I had written this down at 7:00 this morning. No hesitation, move forward. This is what I wrote down first thing this morning. So, and that's exactly what you did, and that's why I write this stuff down, is because I know throughout the day, if I hang around the right people, everything is going to happen exactly the way it's supposed to happen. And today is that day. So
there are no coincidences. We are all connected, and it is really kind of funny how every week you show up, and every week we're like, we don't plan what we're gonna say, and yet there always is a connection. There's always a tie-in to it. So I appreciate that.
Awesome. Great job too, Steve. I love you. Okay.
All right. See you next week, Brandon. Thank you. All right, that's Brandon Schaefer, simplebusinesshelp.com. That's his business. His business is, he's got a team of technology geeks. And if you have different pieces of technology that need to talk to each other, he can connect. His room full of geeks can help you connect this program with this program so that you're not like constantly like shifting between things. You can get data automatically synced up and linked up with each other. So if you need any kind of, if you're a small business, an entrepreneur, you're some kind of a business that has a team full of salespeople, check out Brandon's simplebusinesshelp.com. If you need some technology help, that's what his team does. And Brandon comes on the show each week and provides some simple motivation for us. So I certainly appreciate that. All righty. Well, good. Well, now we're going to shift right to our guest, who is now in the green room, ready to go. And I don't know whether I sent her the wrong link too. And so it's been a little bit of a funny, chaotic morning, but here we go. All right. So Amy Gray Cunningham, are you there? Welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show.
Well, hello. Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for joining us. It's been a fun already, exciting morning. So
that it has. I tell you, I was wondering why I couldn't see you on the show. I was like, why can't I see him? So I logged in on your Facebook page on my phone. I'm like, and then I saw that you had sent me another link. I was like, oh, okay, I had the wrong link.
So I went to, here's, just to tell people exactly what happened. I'm looking at the comment section and, Brandon puts this comment there. It says, please send updated link. And that's when I realized it. And I'm like wondering, why isn't Brandon here? Why isn't Amy here? And I sent you both the links at the exact same time. This is a couple hours ago. So I obviously sent a bad link. And, but here we are. Never mind about all that. Let's just jump into our conversation because that's why we invited you to be here today. Now, Amy, here's the rules. We have 2 rules when we invite a guest to the show for the first time. I've not explained these to you before, so I hope you'll be able to go along with it. Rule number 1 is you will allow me to read a bio so that people will know who you are. And rule number 2 is I have a song that I play, and it's called the First Time Guest Welcoming Theme Song. So are you cool with both of those?
Sure. Let's do it.
Yeah, nobody ever disagrees, but I like to always I like to scare people a little bit, like, oh my God, there's rules. I got to follow rules. So anyway, let's just go ahead. Let me tell people who you are, and then I'll play that, like I said, the First Time Guest Welcoming Theme Song. So
okay.
Amy Gray Cunningham is an author, storyteller, intuitive healing practitioner, personal coach, and living kidney donor. Living kidney donor. You're the first living kidney donor I've met. So her book, Daring to Believe, What Might You Be Called to Do If Only You Dared to Believe. Her book, Daring to Believe. Oh, I've even got here, I'm going to do a screen share too. Look at this. Let's see here. There we go. That should be it. Is that? There it is. Daring to Believe. Yeah. What might you be called to do if only you dared to believe? It's a memoir and chronicle of Amy's journey as a living kidney donor, and it serves as a resource for other potential living donors and family members about what to expect when donating a kidney. So that's what we're going to focus on today. That's going to be the main gist of our conversation. So now, Amy's young life started with constant moving as part of a military family. Fitting in and feeling accepted were elusive. Saying hello equated saying goodbye. She learned the pain of actually saying goodbye at a very young age. Additional difficult life lessons she learned as a child and then teenager included molestation, drugs, alcohol, and sex. Boy, you got it all there. You've got the...
Oh, yeah. You've about covered it all there. Yeah.
You've got it all, man. Facing... Well, no, there's more. Facing a long-term jail sentence for forgery and fraud was the beginning of the end of those dark moments, chapters. A drug rehab program for teenagers, attending AA, NA meetings daily. As the drug haze began to lift, she began to feel human again. Amy was able to begin seeing God's purpose for her life. Ultimate surrender in her life did not come until the birth of her son. At that very moment, Amy felt the feeling of unconditional love for the first time. That's pretty cool. Unconditional love.
Mm-hmm.
That's elusive.
Yes.
Yeah, we don't know about that. Okay, anyway, today Amy is the powerful creator of her own experience, and as a coach, Amy helps others find their life purpose and create the life they want to live. And she's been helping me with that, and we'll talk a little bit about that at the very end. So, Amy Gray Cunningham, welcome to the American Gumption Morning Show. I am honored and grateful that you're here today.
Thank you. I am so grateful and honored to be here too.
This song, are you ready?
I'm ready.
Here it goes.
Wow.
Have you ever had a marching band welcome you to a show before?
No, that's a first.
All
So
right.
I can put that on my list.
Cross that one off.
Yes.
Very
Thank you.
good. Hey, so
That's
so anyway, it's great that you're here. We had met, the last couple of days, a few days ago. We did a little bit of a coaching session, and we'll get into that later, and we'll get into the big details of that later. But today we're going to just talk about you and about the incredible journey that you've had, from your childhood, there was a bit of dysfunction involved.
A little bit. Yes. A little bit.
And so we'll talk a little bit about that, and then then we'll get into the part where it's like, gosh, I think I'll just go ahead and donate a kidney to a stranger. So, yeah, but let's just kind of start at the beginning, since I teased everybody with that, like all that lovely childhood happiness that you enjoyed. You might as well start out with the military moving around. You're just a kid, and we go to first grade, we go to second grade, but I guess you're going to a first grade one place and a second grade another place. And, you're not really making friends, except for you make friends, but then you're immediately saying goodbye to them. What was and these are probably some of your earliest memories. Tell us about that beginning stages.
Yeah, well, it started when I was first born. My mom told me about 2 weeks after I was born, we moved from Newport News, Virginia to Germany. So 2 weeks after I was born. So that's when it all started. And we lived in Germany for a few years. And then I think we moved back to the States, and then we moved back to Germany. And so we were constantly moving. My dad was in the military, and that was just the life that we knew. And like I said, I never really learned how to make friends, and that was just the way of life. And
I remember you said that, like saying hello is the same thing as saying goodbye. I never heard anybody describe it that way, but that's kind of a sad thing.
Yeah. And that was just part of the life of a military brat. Mm-hmm. And I just thought that everybody lived life that way. Although part of me always wished that I had a place to call home. But that was just the way life was. So we were just constantly moving. But, at that age, though, too, my dad was everything. He would put on the military uniform, and he was just like a god almost. Mm-hmm. And he could do no wrong in my eyes. He was everything, and I was daddy's little girl. And then along came my sister, and she just ruined everything for me.
took away that attention that you had owned all for yourself.
Oh, yes. I was 5.5 years old, and the day they brought her home, we were living in Schwäbisch Gmünd, Germany, and I probably didn't pronounce that right, but I remember talking my brother into running away from home because I did not want a little sister. My parents brought home a sister instead of a brother because I had such a cool older brother. But that, and I knew that my little sister, I was going to have to share the limelight, and I didn't like that. So I talked him into running away from home, and my mom pitched a tent for us in the backyard, and that just was not good enough. I decided I was going back to the States to live with Grandma and Grandpa, and so I talked my brother into going back to the States, and we got as far as the stop sign at the end of the street, and we weren't allowed to cross the stop sign. So he decided to turn back, and I decided to keep going. And my father found me walking down the middle of the Autobahn in Germany.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. So he took me for ice cream and told me I should never run away from home again. And that was the beginning of my life of running away from home. So at 5.5 years old.
Wow. That's pretty incredible. And so there's like a lot of hurt. There's a lot of like trauma involved in that. Like little girls don't run away from home, and yet you did that. And it was funny that your brother, it was a funny story, and I love the way you told it. Like your brother knew that he was all down for running away, except for the part where you crossed the street to where the stop sign was, because that wasn't allowed. So
that wasn't allowed. So he was all game until we got to the stop sign, and he thought it was great. And then we got to the stop sign. He said, "Nope, I got to turn back."
Oh boy!
I'm like, okay, I'm on my way.
Oh man!
So,
you think about the scare you put into your father too. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the beginning. At age 8, there's an incident, pretty severe, but you had the bravery or the knowledge or the forethought to go and talk to your parents about it. Describe that incident.
Well, it was my father's, I don't know if it was his staff sergeant or his partner or his, somehow or another, he knew my father, and he lived in the next building over, and he was molesting me. And I knew it was wrong. And to be honest with you, I don't remember everything regarding all of that incident. But my mother and my father had him arrested, and we actually went to court. And I remember being, I was 8 years old, and it was a military court-martial. And I had to walk in as an 8-year-old girl without my parents in the room. And there was nothing but men in the room. And it was a male judge, a male jury of his peers. And I had to get up and testify. And he was found not guilty because I couldn't describe his private part in front of all these people. And all my life, I remember, I always thought that I had told a lie. And just recently, now this was when I was 8, just recently, a year ago, I'm 49 now. I went through EMDR. I don't know if you're familiar with EMDR,
Nope.
But it's like a tapping type thing. Okay. And it kind of takes you back to a memory. And it took me back to that memory. And what it was is the prosecutor or his defense attorney was actually grilling or asking me questions, telling me I was lying. And it was a memory of, and I can remember I had a memory of walking in, and I felt, really small, and everybody felt really big. And for me, remembering the fact that this attorney was telling me I was a liar and that I had made the whole story up was healing for me. That I didn't make the story up. I am so sorry. My dog's barking. Sorry.
The dog understands the
craziness,
weirdness of what's going on. So energetically, it's picking up on the energy. So we'll keep moving along because there's more.
Keep moving on. And keep moving on. And then it's funny because this guy was found not guilty, but he was demoted. He was demoted, and we subsequently moved. My parents separated after that, and I've always felt like it was that was a real traumatic time for me because I felt responsible for my parents' divorce. That led me into a lot of drug abuse later on because of the guilt of the divorce. And my father was, once again, I mean, I was daddy's little girl. And so that sent me down a long spiral. But years later, I found out that this man who had molested me at age 8 actually molested other girls, and he actually killed somebody as a result. So who knows what had happened. But, it's funny because I firmly believe that people are put into your life for life lessons, and he was one of my greatest teachers for learning the life lesson of forgiveness and love, self-love. I thank him today. I don't know where he is or what he's doing. Hopefully, he's gotten help and wherever he is. But I believe that our souls were put on this planet for a reason, and hopefully mine helped him heal. The situation helped him heal on some sort of soul level.
It's probably worth mentioning at this point that this foundation, we're talking about it not to be salacious in the details of it or to bring up some type of feelings of sorrow for you, because you've moved on with your and you're doing something today that's quite impactful, but it's a foundational of what allowed you to get to where you are today. And so that's where, just going through some of these details and, just these things and the fact that you equated telling the truth, coming forward in this thing, this testifying, as the stress on the family that, caused the divorce of your parents. I'm going to just guess that there were other issues in addition to this. So,
as an 8-year-old girl, that's the way I perceived it.
That's right. And so you carry this through, and then, then it leads to the, to the drugs and the alcohol and the, forgery and facing some serious consequences for things that you did. You're still in high school. What part of that story is relevant to, where we get to today?
Well, it's all about making choices. I mean, I made choices in my life that led me to where I am today. And I had to go through those experiences in order to heal, I guess. They were choices that I probably would never have made had I had, I don't know. They were my life choices, and they were patterns that I had to go through in order to get to where I am today. And I'm very grateful for everything that I had gone through. And, the drug abuse was a spiritual escapism for me. I never really felt like I belonged anywhere. I never really felt like I got it, quote unquote, whatever it was. And I think I was telling you about that the other day. I never felt like I belonged anywhere. And if, God handed out the book of life the day that you were born, I, skipped that day. I skipped that day of school because I didn't get it. And everybody else around me said, I don't get it. I'm so sorry. I should have put her up. But I just didn't get it. And I remember sitting, and it was a very pivotal time in my life. I was sitting at a stoplight at a very busy intersection here in Charlotte, and I thought to myself, if I drove in the middle of this intersection right now, would anybody actually see me? Because I felt so invisible, and I didn't feel, no matter how hard I tried to fit in somewhere, I never fit in. But when I was doing drugs, I felt like somebody else, and I felt accepted, and I felt different, and I forgot a lot of the other issues and patterns and things. I felt I felt like I found whatever it was I was searching for when I was doing drugs, and that's one of the reasons why I did it.
Yeah, we all have our forms of escapism, and I was a pot smoker for many years. And then I gave up pot smoking and just started drinking beer because I knew that pot smoking wasn't good. So then, for another 35 years, I numbed myself on a pretty daily basis with just enough beer to numb myself regularly. And boy, it was a pattern that I knew wasn't helpful. And finally, a couple of years ago, you go, oh my gosh, this is just not healthy behavior, and I'm going to move beyond it. And so you move beyond it. Your turning point was much earlier than mine. I was 60, just shy of 60 when I went, I can't keep going this way. This is not healthy. And so, but you were still a teenager when you ended up getting the help that you needed. Talk about that. I mean, and it was forced help, and yet at the same time, you got it. Maybe not completely, but you didn't like rebel against that and go off the cliff or drive into the middle of the intersection to see if anybody was noticing you. You accepted the help, and so there had to be enough of a foundation that you knew in some way that, this couldn't sustain itself. This was unsustainable.
Well, it was when I was facing jail time. I didn't think I would make a really good prisoner, to be totally honest with you.
Okay.
So I just,
orange wasn't your color.
No, orange was my color. And I knew that something had to change. And it was when my mother actually gave up on me. She told me either I was going to go to treatment and she would help me with the criminal charges, or I was out on the street and I'd had to figure it out on my own. And fear is a very good motivator a lot of times. And I knew I had come to the end of my rope. I knew I had to make a change. And so I decided to do it her way.
What age were you at that point?
I was 18. 17, 18, around that age.
Yeah.
I had been.
What did you have to do then as a result of like that agreement you made with your mother to, let her help you?
Well, I dropped out of high school. I mean, I was pretty much out of high school anyway, but I dropped out officially and went to treatment. It was outpatient treatment, but I went to treatment. It was 5 days a week. I got a full-time job pretty much because I had to pay off the debt that I owed. My mother got an attorney and they worked out a deal with the prosecutor, and I had to pay off all the bad checks that were written. And thankfully, by the grace of God and a lot of angels, I think I did not get arrested or see any jail time, thankfully. And I was able to pay off all the debt. I did not graduate with my graduating class, but I did get my GED. So I worked full time. I went to treatment, and I did go to CPCC through their GED program. After that, I started attending college classes at CPCC as well. So, I was always a really good student. I just never really applied myself or showed up to school. So when I did show up, I was really good at school. I just didn't show up.
There's a lesson in life. You have to show up if you want to succeed.
Yes.
Oh boy. So then what happens the next couple of years? Were they kind of like undramatic, or was there still like a low level of dysfunction, or was there a moderate
Oh, there
level?
was
What was
still
happening
a
the
lot of
next few years?
dysfunction. I mean, I was going through NA and AA. I was staying clean. I couldn't keep a job for anything either. I was still trying to find myself. I mean, I was young. But I was still I was still looking for that thing. I didn't know what it was. And I firmly believe now, I believe that we as souls incarnate into this human form to experience our divinity in our humanity. And I was trying to find or experience my divinity. And it's experiencing our separateness in order to experience our oneness with God. And that's what I was so wanting and needing, was that feeling, that togetherness with God. And I still wasn't finding that. I was looking for it in men. I was looking for it in relationships. I was looking for it in jobs. I was looking for it in everywhere else, but looking for it within. And it's always within. It's always within. And until I got pregnant with my son, and I held that little creation in my arms, and I was told many years prior that I would never have children. And it was something that I always wanted. And out of a miracle, I got pregnant, and I decided to keep this child. And I knew that I had to make a better life for him than I had made for myself. Mm-hmm. And he was the reason why I did a lot of changing and a lot of soul searching. And when I held this little baby in my arms, I looked at him and I'm like, I have no idea how to do this. I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I know that we're going to do this together. And I kind of made a pact with him that day that I held him in my arms, and I said, as long as you can work with me and forgive me, we'll do this life thing together, and I'll do the best I can. And, now he's going to be 27, and he's getting married in June. Mm. And I still have to pick out the mother-son song. He's probably going to kill me because I haven't done that yet.
So other than the mother-son song not being properly or timely picked out, you did an okay job of raising him.
I think so. He's a good kid. He's a good kid. He really is. He's got a heart of gold, and he's got his quirks, just like his mother, but he's a loving kid, a loving guy, young man.
In my own journey, Amy, I have really only discovered in the last, it's become like loud and clear, where it might have been something that I intellectually knew, but I didn't quite internalize, that, we too often look for external things to bring us that happiness and that joy. And when ultimately we can only find joy from within. And it sounds like, the whole, and I was guilty. I think we're all guilty, to one degree or another, because we're told that we're these individual creatures separate from everything else. And so we're looking for this external stuff to come in and to make us happy. And we get little pieces of it and we go, oh yeah, this will bring us happiness. And then, it doesn't bring us happiness. And so we keep looking, more and more and more and more for these things external to us to bring us happy. And we can only somehow become happy when those things come into our lives, instead of just, being happy to begin with.
Yes.
So it's challenged. That's the human experience. That's one of the things we're here to do, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Very cool. So like we fast forward up until, I don't know, a couple of years ago, or I don't know. I don't even know. I have no idea when you saw Facebook post, it couldn't have been before 2008 or 9, because that's when Facebook really, kind of came into our lives, maybe a little bit earlier than that. So what was going on in your life, and when was it? And, what was the Facebook post?
It was 2009, and I was doing a lot of meditating and praying. I was kind of dabbling in it a little bit. I take that back. I was meditating. And there was a lot of things that happened before then. I had been meditating for several years prior to that. I actually, before hearing a voice telling me I would be the one to donate a kidney, I had heard a voice, well, not actually heard a voice, but had an inspiration to start a nonprofit for battered women and children here in Charlotte. And so I did that, and that was a crazy, miraculous thing that happened. And there is now still transitional housing for battered women and children here in Charlotte as a result of that craziness that happened. But somebody challenged me to do it. And so I created a board and started a nonprofit. Never done anything like that before. And then I found my husband now. We reconnected after 20 years through Facebook. And that's how I found out about Jennifer Ensley and David Ensley. Jennifer was friends with Chuck in high school. And there was a post that she had created on Facebook looking for a kidney for her brother David. And it was one of the very first posts that had gone out for people looking for a living kidney donor. There was another one that had done it, and they successfully found a living donor. And Jennifer was so desperate because her brother was dying. And so she, in desperation one night, created a Facebook page looking for a kidney. And Chuck looked at me. He's like, "Do you remember Jennifer Ensley from high school?" I'm like, "No." And he says, "Well," he went on to explain to me who she was. And he then told me about David. And I remember hearing very clearly that I would be the one to donate a kidney to David. And it was the first time I heard. I mean, it was very clearly not my voice, but it was God's. It was a voice. And now I hear voices all the time. Aren't necessarily mine. And I just knew. I just knew I'd be the one. And that's Jennifer right there. And that's her husband, Sean, and then her 2 boys. Yep.
And so who was the recipient of the kidney?
That would be David.
Okay. And so this picture here is David's sister and her family.
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Very good. So anyway, you meet these people virtually, and tell us about the book and what goes on. I mean, in terms of like what was the journey. And we spent so much time at the beginning, and I got you started a little bit late. So run us through the whole the story so that people know what is in Daring to Believe and what they could expect.
Well, Daring to Believe is all about my spiritual journey from the time I basically heard the voice. It's kind of I love books. I'm very much an avid reader. And when I was going through the process of becoming a donor, I could not find a really good book on the process. A lot of the books that I found were pretty dry, and they were very, clinical, I guess, for the most part. Now there's a lot more books out there on the kidney donor process, and there's a lot more donors out there than there were when I was going through it 9 years ago. But but my journey, it started around January, and the donation took place in July. So I didn't tell anybody, and I didn't tell David until a little bit after Mother's Day, around Mother's Day. So there's a long process that you have to go through to get approved.
And what did David say when you told him? Have you thought this through? Are you sure?
I'm not quite sure exactly what all went through his head. But I know Jennifer was totally. She's a hoot and a half. Let me tell you, she's
a
force to be reckoned with.
In the book, it's described as a kind of a journey for the family. Obviously, there's a journey for you, but what do the families, I guess both the donor family, the receiving family, I mean, what are the impacts on the family members? What do they have to go through?
Well, for my husband, it was a very hard process of acceptance for him, because of course he was worried about me. Something happened to me in the operating room, and there was a slim chance that anything could happen. I was healthy, so I didn't have any worries, and I knew I was going to come through it just fine. I knew that I was fully protected by God and the angels, and that this was something I was supposed to do. And there's actually even a part in the book where it talks about where I was denied actually being his donor and how that all changed. It's really kind of cool. I believe that was definitely a divine intervention there, how the doctor changed his mind. And, I ended up being a perfect match for David. And to this day, David is doing perfectly fine. He's on very low anti-rejection drugs. He's got some other issues health-wise due to being on dialysis for so many years. But his kidney, we named her Ellie Mae, does really well. And I've had no side effects as a result of donating the kidney.
Do you and your family and David and his family, do you like get together occasionally, or is there separation? I mean, how does that work in terms of friendship?
We did at first, but things happen and life happens, especially COVID happens.
Right.
So, we do. Good. Right now, his mother's actually sick, so I've been in contact with Jennifer quite a bit since then. And David actually just had surgery at the first of the year on his neck, but he's fine again. He's doing well. Happier.
So looking, with the hindsight of almost a decade and looking in the rearview mirror, why did you feel the need to personally do this? I mean, because, the average person would go, hey, I'm just going to mind my own business. And, I don't have to donate a kidney to anybody. Why do you think you went through that process?
That's a good question. It was part of my journey. And I think it was part of me listening to my higher self and really understanding who I am at soul level. And it's opened up so many other opportunities for me, and becoming more of a divine being, and really listening to it's becoming more of an awakening for me. I could have chosen not to. I could have just walked away.
Right.
And trust me, the thoughts were there many times. And there was many times I wanted to walk away, but that soul desire was so strong. And I really believe that when you are destined to do something, it just doesn't go away.
Yeah, I've described it as like those kind of feelings as I cannot not do this. I cannot not do this. So,
I mean, I could have, and I could have walked away, but my life would have been completely different. It's like, when you stand at a crossroads, you could go right or go left. And it's that choice in life that you make. And sometimes I wonder, what would have happened had I not had my son? What would have happened had I decided not to go to treatment? What would have happened in my life had I decided not to, There's so many, what would have happened, and what would have happened had I decided not to donate the kidney to David? Maybe somebody else would have stepped up. Maybe somebody else would have been his perfect match. I don't know.
Right.
But I believe that that was one of my soul's destinies, and that was one of my soul's life purpose to be his match.
This is a good moment to transition, and we're right at the top of the hour. But I think what we'll do is we'll go probably about 8 or 9 or 10 minutes longer than normal, if that's okay with you. I think it's okay. I'm just going to warn the audience that I'm not going to shut this down right at the top of the hour, because there's one more piece of the story that I really feel is important, and that's, what you're doing today in terms of helping others realign to their soul purpose. And I don't know what you were doing, like, say, for the last 5 to 10 years professionally, but I do know what you're doing, in the last couple of years. So, maybe transition us into, after the kidney donation, you write the book. What were you doing then subsequent to that in terms of how did you get to where you are today? And then we'll talk about where you're at today.
While writing the book?
Well, I mean, so you wrote the book and you did all that, but then after that was done, what were you really focusing on at that point in your life and your career?
Well, actually, after I wrote the book, I went more inward again, and did more self-development.
Okay.
And that's when more of my intuitive abilities started coming out.
Yeah.
I lived a lot of my life in the quote unquote spiritual closet, I guess you could say. I grew up in a very traditional, I guess, Catholic home, Episcopalian home. And, you had very strict rules on how things were done and said. And I have a very progressive faith. And I believe that like I said, we're here to live our divine purpose or divinity in our humanness and our humanity. And I believe that we are all connected. We're all one. And by being able to experience ourselves as one, we have to experience ourselves as being separate. And we all have unique intuitive abilities, and we all have the ability to connect to God. And we all have that unique energy that flows through us, that we can create miracles. We can create the life that we want to live. And I have been cultivating, I guess, my divine gifts and understanding who I am at soul level, and working on those patterns, and freeing myself, or not freeing myself, but understanding who I am at soul level, so I can help others to also come to an awakening as well.
You said a couple of interesting things. A friend who's part of our Spirituality Gone Wild community, and someone I've interviewed twice now. Last week she was on, and she was talking about the idea that, like, for the last 10 years, we've all kind of been in the spiritual closet. And now, with this last year and the many things that have happened, we're all sort of coming out of the closet and sharing. And so, and when we met just several weeks ago, when we first met, I was fascinated by your kidney donating story, and I didn't understand the whole soul realignment portion of it, but you and I connected on that level. So just tell people a little bit about what soul realignment is, and about the Akashic records, and we've agreed that we'll save my journey for another interview. So just generically speak about it, because you introduced it to me, and it's really quite fascinating. And the spiritual work that I've been doing for the last decade, I was ready for it. And I'm going to encourage everybody who's ready for this next step to reach out directly to you and to experience what I experienced. But just tell people in kind of a general way, what is it you're doing to help people, discover their own and further their understanding of their own soul's purpose?
Well, I work within the Akashic Records, which is it's a vibrational library of sorts of your soul's journey from many lifetimes prior through this lifetime as well. And it's kind of like a library of everything that you've ever felt, thought, did, said, experienced. And I help people through soul realignment readings to reconnect with who they are at soul level, who God created their souls to be. And we also work with your manifesting blueprint to help actually, to clear away blocks and restrictions that are keeping you from being able to fully step into your divinity so you can live your divine purpose through your humanity in this world, and be able to manifest and create the life that you want to, and live your soul's purpose, whether it's donating a kidney or, living the American Gumption morning show or, starting a nonprofit or doing whatever your soul inspired life is created to be. And a lot of times we get blocked by the crap that just kind of gets in the way because of these negative karmic patterns that we continue to constantly create for ourselves based off of the negative patterns that the choices that we continue to make. And so we just need to clear that out. And we can do that through the Akashic Records. And I work with the angels, and they help intuitively to help you figure out how to do that. It's very an interesting process. And we ground it all into the third dimension. It's a very physical, hands-on process. It's an amazing thing to have happen. I love it.
Well, it is amazing. And I experienced it firsthand with you. And I'm still we'll just say I'm kind of reeling from all of the information. And I started my awakening in 2009, and the foundation of the awakening and the training and the group that I was with, it was really all about this lifetime and the language that we speak in terms of how it creates. And there were, obviously things that happened in our early formative years that, we kept reliving. What was really interesting about the Akashic Records is that if we start to expand that and think, well, not just this lifetime, but previous lifetimes, then there's things that are energetically being carried forward on that subconscious level. And awakening is nothing more than becoming, making the subconscious conscious. And so, if we're going to get into that, this is a whole different bag of tools to work with. And so, when I met with you over the weekend, I thought, well, are we going to talk about this on Tuesday? And then I realized that there was just too much new stuff that I needed a little bit of time to do it. And I wanted to dedicate a full show to kind of go through and explain some of that. So I just think it's great that, what you're doing, and it's been very helpful to me already. And I would love to have you come back and we'll explore, some of the things that, we talked about, both on a, kind of a global level and then kind of on a specific level, if that would be okay.
I'd love to.
Good. Well, we've gone about 10 minutes past. I think it's probably best that we just wrap this show up because it's supposed to be an hour show and it's already gone a little bit longer. And there was a few hiccups early on where I was not sending out links to let my guests log in properly. So I want to give you before I give you the last word, I want people to be able to go to amygraycunningham.com. You can get the links to her book. Of course, her book is on Amazon, and the book title again is, let's see, here it is, Daring to Believe. There it is, Daring to Believe. That's the book. It's basically a manifesto on the whole living kidney donor process. And so you can, but then also you can see there's a tab for soul realignment, and you could connect directly with Amy that way. And it's really, if you're a person who is on your own spiritual journey and, you're open to expanding it, I would recommend that you reach out to Amy and see if it aligns with where you need to go next or want to go next on your journey. So what would you like to leave with the audience with today, Amy? And thank you again for joining us.
Well, I thank you for having me, and just dare to believe that I'm not necessarily in the impossible, but that I am possible. Yes. Yeah. I am possible.
So anything is possible. We are all connected, and there are no coincidences.
Mm-mm.
Very good.
Not at all. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah. And just us meeting, feels like that, divine intervention, because we just connected, through, just the way people meet these days. And I thought, oh, this is an interesting story, but it really took me in a direction that I wasn't expecting. And yet I was delighted to go. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be on your show and share my message.
All righty. Well, if you hang on, I'm going to close the show down, and maybe we could talk for another minute. We could schedule that time for you to come back, if that's okay.
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Thank you very much, Amy.
Thank you.
All righty. Well, that was Amy Gray Cunningham. And again, her website, amygraycunningham.com. I recommend you, get her book, Daring to Believe. And that if you are someone who has an interest in the Akashic Records, Amy would be a great person to reach out and learn more about in terms of how that whole process works. So that's it, everybody. We're going to wrap up today's show. We're a few minutes long. That's okay. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Nicole Nassif. She is going to talk about a brand new restaurant concept that she has. Thursday, Stacy Lamar King. He's going to talk about project management, being a project management professional. And on Friday, Jay Toops returns, and we have technology and the social and political will behind converting our trash, our garbage, our waste carbons into alcohol fuel. So, this is a kind of an interesting week. Sometimes we go, some weeks we are a lot more into the spiritual weeds and the woo factor. And then other times we're a little more into the business factor or the, just good stories, good ideas, what people are doing. So this week's one of those combination weeks. So anyway, we will see everybody tomorrow. Thanks for joining us. Bettina, thank you so much for joining us again. And, she tells about being able to relate her, siblings born in Germany. This is back with what Amy was talking about, and, people all over the world being a family and yet being disconnected. We all go through that life experience of figuring out our journey. So anyway, thank you, Bettina, for joining us this morning. All righty. Well, that's it, everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all. I'll see you all tomorrow.